Hi everyone, welcome back to Getting Amongst It, episode 7 with 9D Diagnostics. I found Derek was trolling through Instagram, and one of the things that caught out was he was dedicated to offering honest and affordable car care. So I was delighted when he said yes, he'd come on the podcast. Every day you should be sure to check him out at 9D Diagnostics. That's 9D Diagnostics. Every day he puts up a story on any type of work that he's doing, and he also educates people. And one of his previous stories was in relation to a brake disc comparison between new and used, and a garage saying that the customer needed the brakes pads to be changed when in actual fact they didn't. So this type of approach I really enjoyed. So let's get amongst it. Derek, thanks very much for doing this.
No problem.
Thanks for getting on the Getting Amongst the podcast. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and I love what you do with your daily updates on all the cars that you're fixing and repairing and the problems going with it. It's a very honest approach. So before we even get into that, let's talk a little bit just about yourself and why you got into cars in the first place.
I got into when I was a kid. I got into cars. You know, most boys and stuff like that, you're into anything mechanical and stuff, but it was more through, I suppose, more through my dad. Mm-hmm. So my dad worked in he was a parts man, and he learned his little bit from cars. So he would have been tinkering around on his car outside, you know, when stuff was points and condensers and stuff like that, and he had to do a little bit. He wouldn't do loads, but so I'd always go be out and watching him peering over the bonnet and stuff like that. So I kind of had an interest in cars in that regard. And from there, then, you know, you're in school and stuff like that, and I done had to do transition year when I was doing it. So when I done transition year, it was the first year you're leaving cert, which was nonsense. It wasn't. It was a DOS year, and that's what it was for everyone, the teachers included. And I just come off the back of doing the junior cert, and so I kind of struggled with the junior cert. I was dyslexic. I still am. So I kind of really struggled to get a decent junior cert, like really study. So when I went into fourth year, I was still in that frame of mind of, right, do the leaving cert. And then everyone kind of throttled back. So I kind of did as well. So we done work experience. And my dad at the time was working for Copen. He was driving the van for them. So I went in there, done 2 weeks work experience. And I was in the parts department, doing all the part stuff and doing all the stock taking and everything. And after a week,
all the lovely work,
all the rubbish that they didn't want to do, you know, I didn't know what to be doing with me, I don't think. So I'd finished that after a week and they'd nothing else for me. And I said, can I go out to the workshop floor? And he said, yeah. So I went out and the foreman was like, yeah, you can come out. I was find boots in there that fit you and I've no problem. So I found a pair of boots and strapped them on, and I was put with a mechanic and I was on everything with him, changing brake pads, oil, whatever he was doing, I was doing. And he watched over me and go, this is how you do it. And I was kind of hooked after that. I was like, oh, this is great. And I wanted to get an apprenticeship. And
so how old are you? You were still 15 at the time?
I was.
So you still had to wait a little bit, did you?
I was around, probably 16, I reckon, roughly. So I was like, I want out of school now. And of course, my mum was like, no. So they were like, well, if you can find someone to give an apprenticeship, you can go. And so I went to CVE and went around my brother on his moped to all the different garages and heard nothing back from anyone and kind of gave up. Went into fifth year and I was like, oh my, this is a different league now, the type of work I have to do. And I still wanted to get an apprenticeship. Yeah. So I kind of said, right, if I don't get an apprenticeship by Christmas, I'm going to have to really study. Otherwise, I won't get any sort of a leaving cert.
Yeah.
But where I'd done the work experience, they had brought me in for an interview, and it looked like I was going to get an apprenticeship there, and it seemed to be done and dusted, you know. And I remember the guy asked me, he goes, Derek, do you mind getting your hands dirty? You know, he didn't even know what to be asking me. And I was kind of like, and I just think in my head, well, I just did work experience there a while ago. My hands were black, so no, not a problem. But it turned out they had a policy where they wouldn't employ you if you're a relative worked there. So,
oh really?
Yeah, and anyway, that's what happened. I didn't get the job there.
So Dad didn't get the boot then, did he?
No, I was thinking, get rid of him. But another guy I was in school with, he got the job there. And then a couple of months later, then I got asked to do an interview for EP Mooney. So EP Mooney and Copen, they're both brothers.
Yeah.
So I got the interview in EP Mooney and got the apprenticeship.
Brilliant. And so EP Moons were good then as a apprentice.
Yeah. It was tough. You know, you went in and I thought, you know, grand, and you're like, now you're washing cars. So it was 6 months of washing cars, and like in winter, like hands were hot into hot water and out, and you were in bits, and then you'd be put with a mechanic for a bit, and then back to washing cars, and then eventually I got signed as an apprentice, and from that then it just you go through the process. So at the time it was under FOSS, I don't know what it is now, and I went through that process of being the apprenticeship, but like there was none of this PC world that's there now.
Do you think that's there? Do you think a lot of kids now would want to get into apprenticeship?
Well, if they had to go through what I did, I don't think they'd last too long, because
really,
there was, you'd make the smallest mistake and you will be bollocked out of it.
Yeah,
like a number plate would be put on a little bit crooked and there'd be hell to pay. And you know, that's, you know, if you gave cheek, you got thrown into a cage and cable tied, and they pour water over it and stuff.
Oh,
like
Jesus,
that.
yeah.
So there was that going, that stuff going. I don't know if you get away with that now. You'd probably be up in court or something, you know. And
maybe, yeah. But it's good character building, though, isn't it?
Well, that was it. Look, it wasn't. Look, it isn't nice at the time, but it's like you kind of knew that as an apprenticeship. Like you knew you'd be told to go off and get the long stand, and you knew a few of the tricks that they'd be up to, you know. So I got cut out once or twice, but not an awful. And then after a while, then, you know, they see you're doing good work and you kind of get left alone then, and
Jesus,
away you go.
Did you move on from EP Mooney's yourself before you started up 9D Diagnostics?
Yeah, well, I finished Mooney's after my apprenticeship, and I moved to Donahue working commercial Fiat, and I was there for maybe a year, and I got they went very quiet in their work. And I left there. I went to Hutton and Mead, and I was there for maybe a year as a senior Fiat technician. And it was just, I got a little bit frustrated with the trade, the way things were done. Every job was yesterday. There was loads there, and then everything would come at once, and every job needed to be done. And it was just, you know, it became a little bit of a nightmare where the joy of working on a car just kind of went out of it, where it was just, you were just turning spanners. You were just, you know,
bolt on, bolt off.
Kind of, yeah. And it kind of got to the point where, like, you weren't earning great money either. Like, you know, there was, at the time, was Celtic Tiger. So lads were putting bricks down and they were earning a fortune. And there I am sweating under a bonnet and I'm getting pennies for it. So I went in one day and I asked the owner, I said, look, I want a raise. And he was like, you're not good enough. I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you're not. He compared me to another mechanic that was there, the foreman, and he was an awful character. But he goes, you're not earning what he's earning. And I said, well, if you give me all the cushy job he's getting, I said, I'll do twice as much. So he goes, okay, I'll come back to me in 6 months. I was like, grand. So I started writing down everything I was doing. And only when I started doing that, I was looking at how much money I was making them. And I was like, oh, brake pads are this and a service. And I worked it all out. I didn't wait 6 months. I went in after a month and a half, and I had it all done out. My brother helped me on like a little pie chart and everything, you know. And I went in. He was like, I said 6 months, and I was like, well, this. And he goes, all right, and he gave me the pay rise.
Really? So that's a bit of advice for anyone then, knowing if you know your worth, go and get your worth.
Yeah, right. Like I simply wrote it down on every car that was in, and I'd write down what job I had done, so it was a service, and I roughly knew how long they were charging out. For me, to how much they were paying me, so you could see what the figures were, and then what brake pads were, and wipers or whatever you were doing, a clutch or any of the jobs. So from doing that, then I was able to say, well, yeah, I am worth it. If I had just taken what he had to say, you would have just turned and go, oh, I'm not worth it, and crawl back in your hole and not do anything about it, you know.
Yeah.
But from that, even at that, I kind of. They'd moved premises, and at the time they brought in, we're getting a lot of workers coming in from abroad, and they employed one or two other guys and paying them a lot less, and they got rid of an apprentice, and so you could kind of see where and I kind of got a little bit sick of working on cars, and I just was tired of it, and I just changed direction, and I got a job in aviation.
Aviation?
I worked for 7 years in Lufthansa Technique.
What were they like?
It was brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah?
Overhauling jet engines. So that's where the name 9D comes from.
Okay.
But yeah, I spent 7 years.
Tell me more about that. Sorry, go back to where they come. What's the name comes from working as an aviation technician.
Yeah, so it was there were Air Motive Ireland, most people will know them as, but Lufthansa bought them out, so it was LTAI, but it was basically Lufthansa. So the department I worked on, or the engine I worked on, was on the 747. So it was called a JT9D. And where I worked was called 9D subs. So it has 9D. So I thought I'd take something from the aviation industry when I was up in my garage and put it, instead of just calling it DK Motors or Derek Kennedy Motors, I was like, everyone does that. And I was like, 9D Diagnostics. Like that, So, well, it was more my wife kind of was like, nah, be good. And we added in this little logo thing here.
The pulse.
Yeah, so it's like an oscilloscope reading. So we kind of went with that name. It looked great. It sounded great until the first phone call comes in and you pick up the phone. Like, hello, Derek from Diagnostics. But I didn't practice it, and I was like, okay, I need to practice answering the phone.
But it's quite cool, 9D Diagnostics. But see, when you learned about the aviation maintenance, I'd imagine it was a lot more documentation. Hugely,
which the motor trade wouldn't be. You tighten a bolt, like do a set of brake pads, and that's it. It's done. No one checks it. You don't sign for anything. It's done and out the door. You do when you're working on an engine. Where I was in the engine, in the aviation industry, the engine gets broken into modules. So you'd be working on a certain module, and when it was being built, you would sign the paperwork to say that you put this, let's say, stator on, and you bolted it up, and it was torqued, and you're going by what's in the manual. And then you'd stamp it with your own stamp. You'd stamp the work,
your own
and then
individual stamp, not a company.
Your individual stamp would stamp it, and then either a lead mechanic or a supervisor, they'd stamp it, and their stamp was their initials with their what you call it, their
authority code. Or?
Yeah, their number, let's say,
whatever
their job number is, with a circle around it, and that's how you know they're
it was verified.
Mechanic. Yeah, and it was verified then. And then the whole paperwork then at the end, when the module's done, gets signed off, and then the modules then all come together as an engine, and then the engine paperwork gets signed off, then it goes to the test cell, it gets tested, then it gets signed off. So there's a load of processes on it. So there's engines that are probably still flying with paperwork out there with my name on it. So
really,
it's
that cool. Is that cool?
Yeah, I loved it. Look, like anything, when you go into a job like that, there's always politics, and you get, when I went in, like, I remember first week I went in, like, I had only left Hunting and Mead probably, I don't know, two weeks, and I had this job. So I went in, I was still in the mechanic frame in my mind, and I got brought over into sub-assembly. I got put with one of the guys, Billy Smith, and we were building a compressor, and he gives me a C5 disc, big huge disc, and there's blades to go into it, and you put this little paste on it, and then you slot the disc in. He showed me one. I was like, oh, that's easy. So done that, and I finished it in 15 minutes. It wasn't anything crazy, And I went down. So right, what's next? And he kind of does a double take, and he's like, "Are you finished?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, and I could see him, and I was like, "Is this? What's going on here?" And he was kind of, right, okay, I'll give you this C5 or C6 state, whatever it was, and listen, just take your time on it, will you? That's all the work we have for the week.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, what, this that I just done? And he goes, yeah, that was your job for the week. And I was like, oh, okay, this guy,
there's more to this.
There's a different pace here. Yeah. And then, of course, lads would come over and go, certain points of the day, go for a coffee. And you're like, coffee? You're going to go for the coffee? You wouldn't dream of doing that in the motor. Standing there in the motor tray drinking a cup of tea, not a chance. Yeah. You would drink your tea when you're on your tea break. After that, you work. So it was, but I could see why it was done that way, because you couldn't be rushing people because they'd make mistakes. So look, there'll be overtime to do stuff, where, if something fell behind to be done, they would put overtime on at nights, the weekend, and the supervisor come around, and some lads had their certain nights they'd work, and some nights lads would do it Tuesday and a Thursday, and they were the only nights they done, because they were
really?
there.
Because the Liverpool match was on the Monday.
Whatever, they were there for so long. They were part of the furniture.
So do you think that it helped you working in the aviation? Helped you become a better mechanic?
Yeah, more accountable on what you're doing and kind of going, okay, look, the old saying is there's no hard shoulder at 30,000 foot, so it has to be regulated. If your car breaks down, you can pull in, and I think anyone, I suppose, who's had a car, and it's, you were saying earlier on, you had a car that went into limp mode. When it does that and you're on the motorway,
it's frightening.
Yeah, and when you've got traffic and you're doing 120 and it goes into limp mode, it's like, turning the engine off. It drops power quick, and you're like, right, and you have to react quick to get off the road. So I kind of like, take some of that, what I've learned in the aviation industry, and bring it into 9D in that regard. So there's more just professional end of it. But yeah,
it's not like a get it in, get it out type of setup.
There still is that end of it there where you look, the customer still needs the car back. It can't be in forever,
I have a week.
Yeah,
you don't have a week really.
Yeah, have a week. I'll take your car and I'll service it. You have it in a week. It's not gonna happen with people,
So, for a little segment that I wanted to kind of do was for like first time buyers. And in your experience, what would you recommend for someone young looking to get out, when they get over the hump of being smashed with insurance costs? What type of car would best suit someone coming up who was like, okay, I have a bit of money there, first job, I want to take out a small car? Or what type of car would suit that model make? What have you come across that tends to work?
It's again, like what you're saying, they're really dictated by the insurance. Obviously, the higher CC you go, the more they're going to load you, and a lot of them won't even quote you. So you're kind of stuck to that 1 litre car. Look, you might get away with getting something a little bit more, but you're kind of, if you have lots of money. But if you don't, like, I know guys are paying $2,000 for insurance.
I've heard crazy numbers,
and you're like, you're paying what, so they're kind of stuck with, maybe jumping on their parents' insurance and driving what maybe they have, or they get something a little bit small that's a 1 litre, whether it's a Hyundai i10 or something.
You'd recommend the Hyundai i10? Or would you like a Golf, not a Golf, but a Polo? Punto?
Look, they're not
sexy.
They're not a sexy car.
No.
They're not, they're not like, yeah, look what I got, and you're going to pick up your girlfriend in it and go, look what I have, like, doesn't matter what alloys you put on it, it's a 1 litre, and it's not. And look, they don't make nice looking cars anymore. They don't make anything that's, I've always noticed that recently, like, the innovation there in the manufacturers is just, they seem to have lost it. Like, I don't know, in some regards they lost a little bit of their balls. Like, you look at, they used to have Nissan and Toyota had a Toyota Starlet, and someone decided, let's put a turbo on that 1.3 engine in, and they got the GT Starlet. And Nissan did the same with the Micra. I drove one before and it was crazy. The box Micras, the 88 Micras, they were a tin can, but they had a 1.3 turbo engine, and the thing was like a rocket. But no one wants to do that anymore. They'll bring out a Prius and make it look ugly, and they don't need to. They can make something look nice, but again, you could bring, the manufacturer could do that now. They could bring out the equivalent, let's say, a Yaris with a turbo in it, a 1.3, and it'd be great, but you wouldn't get insured in it.
No, you wouldn't, would you? Like, but then I saw, I think Volkswagen have the T-Roc, which is like a pumped up Golf.
Yeah.
That's a 1.3 turbo in it, but it's an MPV crossover. So that's the kind of style they're going down that way, though.
Yeah.
It's quite bizarre that they're going that way. But do you think, so you reckon that manufacturers, the design, there's no individual designs anymore? They're all streamlined towards a more curve type car?
Yeah, like Fiat got it right for a while, where their cars actually look pretty cool. Like when they brought them out, the likes of the Puntos and the newer ones and the Bravos, where they actually looked okay.
Yeah.
But then I don't think anyone out there can tell me that a Prius looks nice.
You don't like it?
It looks horrible. Like I was only kind of late in the game. I'd watched Breaking Bad, and then I stopped watching, and I finished off watching it with everything that's going on with COVID. And it's like, I don't know if people know the car that Walt was driving. That I don't know what it was, some orange looking thing that he drove, and it was the ugliest looking thing ever. And that's a lot of cars that are out there. They just like, I said, there's nothing out there that's kind of, I suppose, sexy, whatever.
So what's your own car history yourself? What's been your favorite car you've had?
I had a
including the problems that has come along with it.
I had a Nissan 200 SX.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the car that I wanted to get, because as an apprentice, they'd come in, and I think we had one came in. It was when I was an apprentice, and came in for a service, and you weren't allowed to drive this on the road, and the mechanics were allowed to drive. An apprentice, you weren't. But they were nice. I loved the way when they started, they kind of rocked. They kind of had this little, it was nearly like V8s would be, that little rock in it when it started. I just liked them. So it was always the car that I wanted to get. And they were just crazy money. So I ended up getting one over in England and bringing it over. And I realistically should have brought it back and sold it straight away, and I would have made a nice profit on it. But I kept that for a while. So that was kind of my dream car to have.
You weren't going to tell the guy who owns the car, listen, you need to sell that car. That car's about to fall apart. Like that. Let's talk about then when someone is going to buy a used car. It's an area that I've had a good few cars in my time, but for someone who's going to go out and buy a used car, what's a couple of things as people should know as fact to go and have a look at before buying a car, when they're walking around the car? What should they be looking out for? More obvious stuff. One of the examples, just to start the conversation, was the likes of a seatbelt. When you pull the seatbelt right back, and you see a little bit of wear and tear. Some stuff like that. If it's rough on the treads, then the car's been used a lot more extensively than it looks, because everyone cleans their car and washes it before it goes for inspection. Yeah. So stuff like that. Anything else you've come across that people should hone in on?
Yeah, I suppose there's a few things you can look at before you even get to the car. Is look at where the car is. Look, not every place is going to be showroom material, and even you can go into the fancy showroom in the world, whether they're a dealership or what have you, and they can have a lemon sitting on the workshop on the floor and not even know it. Because I know salesmen, and they were just taking a car because they were selling a brand new car, and they wouldn't even test drive it. The norm would have been you should at least test drive it. The thing could be turning a corner, and they take out a book and they give you X amount of money, for it. So even the well-intentioned dealer out there or smaller car sales guy can get caught out, but go with your instincts. If you're not liking the feel of the guy you're dealing with or the woman you're dealing with, well then, if you're getting that dodgy car sales, kind of have a look around, and or if that garage has changed name 6 times in the last couple of years, there's a reason why it's changed name. It's probably the same owner, it's just changed name for whatever reason. So, but other than that, when you have a look at the car,
what would you start off with? You're looking at a car on behalf of somebody else. What would you start off with looking at first?
The first thing I'll do is, when I get there, I'll plug into Diagnostics and I'll let that walk away and do its scan, and then I'll you'll run through all the electrics and make sure everything works. The simple stuff, that'll annoy people. The windows are all working, the heater comes on, if it has aircon, it actually is working. And then you start on the outside and walk around. You're looking at the bodywork, making sure that it isn't being crashed and what have you, So you'll have a look at certain places where most impacts are going to happen, on the rear of the car, on the front, on the side. You'll be having a look around there and seeing what you can see. A friend of mine now, he's really good at spotting the difference in colours. There, see that there? that's been crashed. And I'm looking at it going, what? And like, I'll have to change angle to see, oh yeah, I can see the different, but he'll spot it straight away. But you're looking at stuff like that. But I suppose a person at home who's going in to buy a car, they might be going in, you know, tomorrow Saturday, might be going to look at a car. You know, you look at the driver's side door handle, that open. Look at that first, because everyone's one thing that's used. Look at that, see what the wear is. And then when you get in, look at the driver's side door panel. Most people sit with their hand up here, so there's going to be maybe a bit of wear up here. The inner door handle, where they pull it to close. Then look at the steering wheel, because everyone drives with usually their hand up around 2 o'clock. You're looking at wear there. Wear in the gear stick. Now gear sticks can be changed quite easily. They screw off, screw a new one on.
Yeah.
The center console, hands go around there. The clutch and brake pedal. See what the wear's like on that. Now the pedals, the rubbers can be changed, so they can be a bit of if they're brand new, you know, or if they're really worn.
Have you experienced that before?
I've seen it before with her. Yeah. That's quite worn, you know. And then look at the carpet. They might have a mat down. Lift the mat up and look underneath the mat and see if there's, because your feet sit, your heels, your feet sit there. Especially if there's it's a rep's car and he's been driving it and he's in and out, in and out, in and out. Your feet are going to sit there and it's going to wear away the carpet. No salesman in the world is going to replace the carpet on a car. You know, too big of a job. So they'll just put brand new mat over. So have a look at stuff like that. You can do the what's that online check that you can do?
Oh, like a cartel.
The likes of the cartel.
Okay.
I'd always say leave that to last. Do that stuff.
Last. You do it last. Jeez, I've often done it first.
You can do, but you know,
well, it's just interesting.
Most people want to say, if they want to save money, like, it doesn't cost you anything but time to go out and look at a car if it's yourself.
Okay.
So like, I've looked at cars for people, and although, you know, they ring me, Derek, can you look at a car with me? And I'm like, and I don't like doing it. It's one of the things I actually don't like doing. And I'm like,
because it falls on you.
No, just because you're going into places that, and you don't know where you're going sometimes, you know, and there's a few places out there that are fronts, you know, and you do the wrong thing, you might end up in the boot. So you're kind of like, where's this car? And even I won't even know sometimes what it is. So you're kind of like, oh, okay. But I always say to people, look, is this, if I go out and look at the car for you, so I'm going to charge you. So before I do that, is this the car you want? Like, if I say this is good, are you going to buy it? You know, make sure that that's the one for you. So go out and look at it. Bring it for a test drive. You know, drive the car. It's simple. Drive it down the road and take your hand off the steering wheel. See if it starts pulling. Now, there's always a bit of camber on the road. It's the way the road is designed. There'll always be a little drift to the left. But if you take your hand off the wheel and it starts diving off, well then, you know, you're going to go, okay, right, well, the tracking is off. Why is the tracking off? If it's off like that, it hits something. Now, it could have been something as it hit something before and there's nothing major, but it's still, okay, I need maybe to be concerned about that, you know.
Does the tracking get knocked quite easily?
If you hit a big enough pothole, it will. It will. But it will normally be off for something like that if there's damage. So it may have slightly bent the wishbone. Or damage a track rod end, and that's why it's gone off. Like it's on a threaded system, so, and it's locked, so the threads can't unthread and go back. So something had to have moved it. So the metal might have bent a small bit. You mightn't see it, but it might be there. So when you're seeing stuff like that, you know, so I'd always say, look, drive it, have a look around, look under the bonnet, dip the oil.
So yeah, the dip the oil was always something that.
On a diesel, don't bother because it's going to be black.
Okay.
And
but you'll never get any discoloration on a diesel.
I've serviced cars, and I'll bring them in, I'll service them, and fresh oil will go in, and I'll drive it around the block, bring it in, dip it, and
be brown.
Well, no, look, it's clean.
Yeah.
But it's black. It's just the way diesels are compared to a petrol. So dip it for oil. If it's diesel and it's black, you know.
So when you're looking at the engine bay itself, and your engine in the middle, your coolant, so to ensure all those levels are up, any type of like leaks, for someone who doesn't have access to a ramp as such, and their only chance is to look at the bonnet or under the bonnet, where can they go to first? At the top of the if it's the spark plug, where the spark plugs are, the injectors are, looking for any types of leaks there, and down the side of the engine. Is it worth going to the engine first to see is the overall condition of the engine, see if there's anything like smells, or is it worth starting off of the accessories around it, see if the battery's okay, or is the coolant, the tubing on the coolant, is that all good? Where would you start when you look underneath the hood?
I'll start on the outside. So I'll let it do a diagnostic scan. It'll be walking away, depending on the car. It can take a bit of time. So I'll let it do its thing. I'll start on the outside. I'll look at the body work. Checking in the boot. So more body work, looking at it, to see if it's crashed. If I'm happy enough that there's nothing major there, look, coming across a car that hasn't been crashed, everything's got some sort of a knock. And then you're looking at the tires. You're looking in to see if you can see the brake pads, to see what they're like in the discs. Any leaks from the shocks.
So when you're looking at the pads and discs, for someone who has an untrained eye, is there a simple rule of thumb when they're looking at a pads or discs? What are they trying to find? Like a dent or a scratch? Obviously, a scratch.
Yeah, you're looking at the. I suppose you're looking at
uneven wear
on the disc on it. Yeah, if you're seeing lots of rust and stuff, they're not like there's a layer. Like some cars will sit out and the disc will be covered in rust, and that's just rain hitting it. But if there's like a silver bit and then there's a rust bit, well then you know that the brakes aren't mating properly to the disc. Okay. So there's something going on there, and it might fail an NCT on that. But more than likely, it's going to come out of the garage with an NCT. But that's something to be looked at. But you're mainly looking to see if there's any lip on the disc, on the top of the disc, if there's any protruding lip, and how deep it is. But it really comes down to like if you have something.
It's a good bargaining tool though, isn't it? If you see it, looked at this, it's lipped.
It can be.
Knock off that price of the car.
Yeah,
because you're going to do the disc all around.
Most
it's going to be on one, it's going to be on the other.
Most garages I come across, what they'll normally do is they will. I don't know why they do it this way, but when a car is sold, then they'll service it and do the work. I always kind of mention, would you not service it first? But look, maybe maybe I have it wrong. So you might necessarily get money off it. They go, okay, yeah, we'll do that. Because they'll have a mechanic maybe there on site or someone that they give it to, and they'll get him to do it. And he'll put this and pads in if you've noticed it. So you mightn't get necessarily money off unless you're going, listen, I'll take it as it is, but I want X amount off because I got to do this, and this. But for if you're buying a car that's coming with 3 months warranty or 6 months warranty or whatever it's coming with, well then you'd be pointing these things out because they might necessarily replace them if you haven't said it. They go, well, in my opinion, it's okay.
Should they be disclaiming that information though? Because if you have a nice search history, on a car, can they withhold that search history or not search history, vehicle history? Can they withhold that information?
Or like the service history on it?
Yeah. If they say, we don't have it, can they hold that back, or have they?
We don't. We're not great at doing it here. Yeah. England is really good. Like when I bought the car, the 200SX from England, you have a service logbook that you'd stamp. They're kind of done away with now, but in that was all the receipts of. So whoever owned the car put all the receipts everything that car got. So I was able to look back and go, oh wow, I've got X back here and what have you. I don't know. Here we're not great at doing it. I don't know if it's Irish culture or whatever. Service history doesn't seem to
come into it.
Yeah, like if I do a service for somebody, I'll give them an invoice and I'll give them their invoice of what it cost and what was replaced. And then I'll give them a full, maybe depending on what mileage is, it could be 2-3 page report on all the checks that I done.
Okay, like a tick list.
Yeah, and they'll have that then. Well, what they do with that, I've seen, and it's going into somebody's, it gets folded up into their back pocket or goes into their purse. And I'm like, realistically, it should probably go somewhere in the car. So when you're selling that, you can go, look, here's my service here, and it got serviced in whatever garage in 9D, at this mileage, and here's what was done. And person go, okay, you looked after your car. So you can ask a better price for it,
knowing that you have put the money into it.
Well, it gives, like, if you're buying a car off me and you're kind of, yeah, I like this car, and I can go to, here's the service history for it, and I can show you everything. You're like, oh, okay, right, the car was looked after. It wasn't just service once in a blue moon. Or if I don't have the service history, they say 2 identical cars. Which one are you going to buy off me? You have identical cars, same mileage. One has a service history, and one has sporadic or no service history. Which one are you going to go for? You're going to go for the one with the service history, more than likely. Well, I would.
Yeah, and if I was going back to the underneath the bonnet, I'm looking at the car, the engine. Any telltale signs with smoke coming out of an engine? That'd be huge alarm bells.
Yeah, I'd be running.
You'd be running.
Yeah.
So you said more or less that you'd be
very
looking.
Rarely you'd see it now, but unless there's a major oil leak that's going on. A lot of cars will have the engine covers in the top, and they just pop up. So pop it up, have a look. You mightn't see the back of the engine, but you might see the front and the side and have a look. If there's any oil around the top going down, well, then you know, okay, right, there's an oil leak here.
I'm laughing. I sound like fucking idiots. You sound like there's smoke coming out of an engine. Do you still buy it?
Well, you know what? It can be amazing if somebody really likes the look of a car, and that's indeed, it looks great. It's all substance, but you lift up. That's where if somebody like myself comes into the play, where I'll go and look at it with a critical eye. I don't really care if you buy the car or not. I'll tell you what the problem is or what it needs, and it's up to you then after that. Like, here's your information, now you decide. And I've had people where I've given them stuff and they still bought it. I'm like, wow. And then I had one woman. It was recommended me through another customer, and she was living down the country, and she's seen a car up here, 2 cars that she liked, and she asked me, "Can I go look at them?" I was like, "Yeah," and both were in the same place. So I said, "Look, I looked after it kind of on the price because I'm in the same place. So I'm not going to 2 different venues." So I looked at 2 of them, and the one car, it was nearly like a page-long report of issues.
Really?
Yeah, and it looked great. Photographs looked brilliant. And it looked okay when you went out, but when you put a closer eye to it, like, okay, it needs disc and pads, it needs 3 tires, it needs 2 shocks, there's a major oil leak. You couldn't see it from the top, but if you ducked your head underneath, because I'm not putting it up on the ramp, because I don't, the car was buried. I just stuck the head underneath and had a look, and I was like, wow, look at that oil. And so there's a major oil leak coming from somewhere. So there was a huge list with it, and the other one had a quite, not as bad as a list, but still a list.
Do you get much conflict when someone brings the likes of yourself out to look at the car, and the buyer is like, oh, fuck, do you think do you get a lot of conflict saying, oh, what do you know, or have you ever experienced anything like that?
No, because I won't.
Or they just like, oh shit, they'll walk away like.
Most of the sales guys and stuff know the gig, so they just give you the keys, and like, I'll be dressed in the overalls and stuff, so they just give you the keys and leave you to it. Or if it's a private sale, they might hover around, but I'll only ask them a couple of questions. Is it serviced and blah blah blah, and I'll ask them a few different things. But realistically, I'm not getting into it. I'm not going to tell them the problems that I find. That's not for them to know. It's their car. That's between me and say the customer who I'm looking at it for. Because if I start saying to the either the salesperson or the guy who's selling it, and I go, oh, well, there's this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, there's more potential I can get into an argument with him, and I'm not there for that. I'm there to just look at the car, write a report, and then give it to my customer and say, look, this is what I found. And sometimes people go, would you buy it? And I say, well, I wouldn't let my wife buy it. That's just, I wouldn't let my wife drive that car with my kid in the back. So take from that what you want.
Yeah, it's true. And have you ever anyone? So you can't stress the importance of just walking away. Yeah, walk away from.
Follow your gut. If your gut is telling you, oh, I don't know, walk away. There's nothing to it. Walk away and think about it. Don't. Salesmen go, I have another customer coming looking for this. How many times you hear that? They're coming now. Oh, if someone looking for that, they're coming with a deposit and all this rubbish. Or I've had 6 people interested. Yeah, okay, great. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So if you might be looking at it and he's like, yeah, look, they're coming and it's a Saturday and we can have this ready for you for Monday or whatever. Go, and your gut was kind of telling you to, but then walk away, go home, think about it, and sleep on it And if it's still there the next day or the Monday or whatever, and you still want it, well then go for it. If not, you might be like, save yourself a lot of heartache.
And if it's too good to be true?
It's too good to be true.
It usually is.
Yeah.
Very good. And now, guys, by the way, the follow-up is any questions, don't fire them to me. Fire them to Derek, okay? Because he knows a lot more about it than I do, okay? Little bit of his next bit is what other horror stories then have you come across that people have gotten taken advantage of? Or are we changing? Are we looking after people out there better in the motor trade?
Well, there's always, I suppose, there's pressure there, I suppose, on the sales guys. They have cars that they need to shift, and then somebody's coming in to trade something, so they need to take that car off them for you to buy something that's of more value. So they might get stuck with something that they need to move. If it's really bad, they'll normally just trade it in the trade. So they'll have. I don't tend to do it, but a lot of mechanics will buy stuff like that. They'll get something like that needs a lot of work. So, and they'll do it up themselves and sell it themselves, and the garage doesn't have to worry about it. It's too much work for them to do, and they don't need the headache. But yeah, I've seen cars that have come in where people have bought, and it comes in for a service, and you're doing a big list for them, and you're kind of like, well, you should have asked somebody before you bought it.
Does it happen more often than most?
My friend of mine, he was going out on his own as a plumber, and it was a good few years ago, and he was buying a van, and he was like, Derek, can you look at the van? I said, yeah, no problem. And he gives me the address of where this van is. I'm looking, I recognise that address. So he's already up there. So I'll be there in 10 minutes. So I'm on the way up, and he needed to get one. He was kind of desperate to get something. And I'm driving up, and it was my ex-landlord who we didn't part terms on. He withheld deposits on us and stuff, and he was the dodgiest landlord you'll ever come across. But myself and my wife now, girlfriend at the time, were kind of young and naive, and we wanted our first place to to branch out on our own. So we went for this place, and I rolled up and I came past, and I'm like, oh, that's the dude, that's the guy. And I could see me mate there at the van. I'm like, whoa, what do I do? And I'm thinking, I have to tell me mate what the story is here. So I rang him. I said, listen, that's my ex-landlord. And he knew the history behind it. And he goes, right, I'll walk away from it. And when he came up to me and said, what was he saying to you? And so the landlord doesn't live at the house. He lives somewhere down this neck of the woods, some big fancy house. And he was making out that he was living in that house where I used to rent. They hadn't got the logbook yet. Someone else was coming out with the logbook. But basically, my mate was going to be buying a lemon, and he'd have no comeback because your man doesn't live there. But that's where the car would have been registered. So,
should always try and meet the person at the house.
Yeah.
At their own house, I should say.
Yeah, at their own house.
Not in a car park or is that okay? Or it's more gut. It's gut, really, isn't it?
Yeah, you can do. You can meet someone at a car park. That's fun if you're just going to look at a car, but not to buy a car. I wouldn't be going to meet someone at a car park with $6,000 of cash. You can go look at it, and then if you like it, if you're happy enough that you don't need anyone else to look at it, and you're like, yeah, I know what I'm looking at. I'm going to buy this car. Well, then you arrange then to you do the deal and do it in a bank. You go into the bank and you write a banker's draft out for them, or what have you, or they lodge it. That's what I bought a car for my wife a couple of years ago, and I went out to look at it. I was happy enough with it. I was like, yeah, grand. Arranged the price, and I said, well, how do you want to do payment? And I was paying cash, and she's like, well, can you make a banker's draft out, and meet me in the bank, and I'll lodge it in the bank while you're there. And I was like, yeah, okay.
That seemed genuine then. At that stage, you're kind of
it was more to cover herself that I wasn't giving her dodgy money or a dodgy check or a dodgy banker's draft. Yeah. Now, her husband was a guard, so they were, they were, and I was like, yeah, I've no problem with that. So I done that and lodged in, and once that lodged in, signed the logbook and the car was mine. So it's it's kind of, you know, you're dealing with, you know, cash. But I do say to people, look, between 6 and 10 grand, anything under that, you're buying somebody else's problem, realistically.
Really? I won't tell you how much the cost of my own car was then.
you can tell me after.
So, boom, 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 boom. So talk about the trust people have with mechanics then. Are we trusting mechanics again? Or do you feel there's still a stigma there?
I think there's a big stigma there. I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it I suppose the way I operate is, like, when you're, say you come into me for a run of the mill service, the car comes in and it's getting its engine service, so it's getting the filters changed. Mm-hmm. It's getting its oil filter, its air filter. If it's a diesel, more than likely going to get a fuel filter, depending on the mileage and the price. Some of them are expensive, but I always say to somebody, well, would you rather spend €50 on a fuel filter or $2.5 grand on a fuel pump? Because that's what you're kind of looking at if something goes wrong. So you're getting that as the engine service, and then after that, I'm doing more of a safety check on the car. So I'm looking at everything on the car, from the tires, brakes, shocks, wishbones, corrosion, brake pipes, lights, levels, loads of different stuff. There's loads of different checks that I go through, and then on that, then I'm doing up a list of what the car needs. So I might look at it and go, okay, measure the discs and they're below its minimum. It needs disc and pads. Rear needs disc and pads. So there's a bill racking up now, and there's a shock leaking at the back. Okay, there's a shock leaking. You normally replace shocks in pairs, but that's down to the customer because you can get an imbalance. But
once one goes, the other one goes.
Yeah, because really, it's like if you change. Most people will, you know, a bulb goes in their car, they'll change a bulb. What happens 2-3 weeks later? The other one goes, because they both went in exactly the same time. So the shocks will be the same thing, but it comes down to cost. You know, ideally you should replace both of them, but you know, the option's always there. Go, look, you realistically should, but it's your car, it's your money. You decide. So I'll do the list out. Like, normally small stuff, I say to people, look, we can get small stuff done today. Brake pads, wiper blades. But we'll always ring you and tell you and say, look, your brake pads are at its minimums. If you leave it any longer, they're going to go to the metal. We can get them done today and give them the price, and the person will say yes or no, or I'll do it another day or what have you. And there's no problem. Bigger lists, I'll just give to the customer. You know, unless there's something really dangerous, I'll go, look, this is really bad, which is rare. But other than that, I'll just do a list and go, look, this is what we've done today. This is what your car needs, and I'll run through it. I'll show them pictures that I've taken, maybe a short video if there's something going on, and give them the prices and what everything is, and then let them take it away. Because I find a lot of places out there will push to get work done, and I know some people going, well, you probably should be pushing to get work done. You're a business, but you're trying to build trust with people that that they'll come back to you and go, well, you know what, it did need all this. And some people will look at it and go, well, they'll, you know, this is where it comes into buying cars. They'll get a list, and they could have a list of maybe, it could rack up to, let's say, €800 for argument's sake, whatever needs to be done. And
it's a big bill.
It's a big bill, yeah. And it might be because the car hasn't been maintained in a long time, so it's added up. But they go, oh, you know what, maybe I'll just get a new car. I go, oh, okay, all right. And I'll say, well, look, if you can afford a new car and you can afford to be paying between 6 and 10 grand or whatever, well, then go for it. So if you're paying that and less, you're more than likely going to be buying a car with the same problems.
Okay.
So so if you're, some people are in the market are like, well, you know what, I have the money to get a new car. I was going to get one. I was going to wait till after Christmas, but you know what, I'm not going to spend it. I'm going to get the car now. I go, okay, grand. Decision's made for you. But if you're not in that realm, then you're going to go, okay, well, look, then your other option is you put the money into the car bit by bit or in one go. You have your NCT or you get it through the NCT and you have a year's cheap motoring and you assess the situation next year. But you've done a bulk of the work. And I find that's what happens with a lot of stuff is where somebody will leave. I always say, you know, to somebody, look, service your car once a year regardless of the mileage. Very minimum, you're going to be doing an oil and filter change and checking it over, you know. if you're not doing the massive mileage. But do it once a year, and you keep on top of all that small maintenance. The longer it goes, then look, the cars are wear and tear item. Things are going to wear, the bushes are going to wear, brake pads are going to wear down. And then when all that comes at once, it's like, the boiler went on home and X, Y, and Z is gone, and it's a huge thing. But when it gets caught early, it's a smaller bill at the service. And then I've had cars that come in and, it's just a service. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with your car. It's perfect.
What's your thoughts then on using spurious parts and genuine parts?
No difference.
You really?
Yeah.
Even on the fuel filter. I feel like mechanics said the difference is put a genuine fuel filter on.
Get a good brand, generic one, and you're fine. Get a one you don't recognize. I've had oil.
Don't order off wish.com anyway.
Yeah, I've seen people getting stuff in from, and they look reputable, and they come in and like, oof, so
it's toilet paper.
Yeah, I had one guy came in and he had failed an imbalance on his shocks, and he got a set of shocks done. He got them online. He got another mechanic to fit them. I went back in for his NCT again, and it failed on the imbalance on the opposite side. So he came to me, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, okay, it's your shocks. And he wasn't convinced. He was like, no, I got them done. I was like, no, it's your shocks. But the only way for me to really know is to take it out. So, but I can guarantee you it's your shock. And I only bought them. I was like, that's what it is. So, and anyway.
What was you saving on? Do you mind me asking? A shock would be 80 quid a shock, right?
Yeah, roughly depending. Yeah, maybe you might, depending on the car, could go to 120. But yeah, around 80 quid. I don't know what he was saving. Some people might be saving 10 quid and it's a bargain for them. You don't know people's where they're at financially, so
not for the judge either. Like it was the case that he just
he got them, somebody else fit them, and so anyway, I pulled the shock out, which I was suspecting was wrong. And as soon as I took the spring was holding the shock in place. As soon as I took the spring off, the shock dropped, and it shouldn't because it's filled with fluid. You should be able to push it down. There's be massive resistance in it, well, good enough resistance, and it just dropped. I was like, there you go, that's your problem.
Wow.
And that was a brand new shock you bought. And he got onto the crowd he bought it off. And I think he got a refund anyway. I said, look, it could have been a bad batch, but it's the time now that he lost. So he bought them, another mechanic fit them. He had to pay him to fit them. Then he came to me and we got new shock, put it in. And the car went back in for its NCT, missed its deadline, so it was a full retest. And they found more wrong with the car. So the situation just got worse. I felt sorry for him, but it was just, went too long, and it was the obvious thing. And I've done, like, when I went back into the motor trade, I done a load of diagnostic courses, and the guys that were doing it were saying they had a car in before, and they diagnosed a problem with the airflow meter, which is, airflow meter, they're not cheap on some cars, and some cars have two of them. They can be quite dear. And they diagnosed the airflow meter. They bought it, put it in. I think they got it from a motor factory. They put it in. Car went out, was fine. Came back 2 weeks later, same problem. So they're like, okay. So they started looking at other stuff, and they said they chased their tail, and eventually they were like, has to be the airflow meter. They're like, but we just changed it. So they tested it again, and it wasn't reading right. So like, what's going on with this? So anyway, they opened the airflow meter up, and when they looked inside the electronics in it, they said it looked like tin foil.
Really?
And the part came from, I think he said it came from China. And he goes, but it came in a great package. It looked brilliant. But he goes, lesson learned. It goes, from now on, we only use a good branded product, like Bosch or something like that, where, it's a good generic part. And that's what, we were saying earlier on about genuine parts and spurious parts, which, motor factors. You go for a good one. And you can always, like, I'll go in and I'll be ordering maybe a sensor, and I'll go, look, what have you got? What brands have you got? And you go, I've got this. And I go, give me that one. And he mightn't have it on the shelf. We'll get it from me, or he'll have it there. Because I know it's a good one. I know I'm not, if the last thing, like, you want that situation.
It's come back.
It's come back, because ultimately you're losing time in it. You can't charge the customer. Some places will. They'll make up a story and charge them. But, realistically, you can't be charging them. You made the mistake. It wasn't your mistake. It was yours for going for the cheaper part. You know, you buy cheap, you buy twice. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So go for something a little bit better. But when it comes to cars that are under their manufactured warranty, it's a different ballgame. So the perception out there when you buy a brand new car is that, you know, you've got to go back to the main dealer to get it serviced. Otherwise, your warranty is gone. I've
heard that. Yeah.
Now, under EU regulation, that's not the case, or EU law, where it's funny how they state it, but basically in a nutshell, what they're saying is that you can use parts that are equal to the manufacturers. So you can go into a manufacturers and buy something and put it in. Now I have a fleet of cars that I have in, and they're all under warranty. Now I buy the genuine parts from the dealer, so there's no issue. I have the genuine part, and I have one or two customers that come in, their cars are still under warranty, and I said to them, look, to keep your warranty intact, if anything goes wrong, I said I'm buying genuine parts, which they're just more expensive. But if anything goes wrong and they go back to the dealer and they're being a bit, oh, well, we can't because X, Y, and Z, go, you didn't use genuine parts, and go, well, we did. And here's the receipts because we bought them from you. You know, so there's that cover there. But, you know, it can save somebody who has a brand new car paying the big dealer costs.
Did they put up a wall because they said, oh, well, it wasn't our mechanic who done it?
They can't because there's EU legislation there.
What's the name of that law?
I can't.
Not the law, but there is an EU law.
There is, yeah. I looked it up.
What keywords would people, if they're listening to this, would they?
You know what? It was buried, and it took me a while to find it. And I remember finding it because I was like, I had a car coming in, and I was like, I need to know this.
Yeah.
And I can't remember now. It was probably 2 years.
That's okay, but if you do remember, anyone we follow up on it.
Yeah,
we can follow up on it. Okay, that's grand. That's very interesting. So your own advice to people out there who, in relation to cars, what have you picked up along the way that you could pass on to people? Don't buy shite.
Well, yeah. Look, somebody, you know, you buy what you can afford as well, and
that's true. Yeah.
And then sometimes, you know, you'll buy the nice fancy car that looks nice, but the reputation of it isn't great, and it's not great for a reason, you know. So I suppose my main advice is, and it's not to push business my way, I would have you, but it's to maintain your car regularly. You know, service it once a year. You keep on top of everything. Realistically, and even I hate doing it. I hate buying tires in my car.
Really?
Yeah, and I think it's psychological, but they're probably that and brakes are up there one of the most important. You know, tires are the only thing between your arse and the road, and brakes are the only thing between you and hitting a wall. You know, so it's keeping on top of these little things, and you service it. If you've got a good mechanic that you trust and is doing a good job, he's not going to screw you. You know, but I have seen it where people go in and they're told they need brake pads and they don't. You know. And you're like, how? I had one customer, not one recently, but it was 2 years ago, and I'd looked. He asked me for a price on his brake pads, gave me a price, and yeah, okay, grand. And I took the car in, put it in the ramp, looked at the front brake pads, and they were brand new. I was like, okay, maybe he meant the back. So I went to the back, pulled the wheels off, and they were brand new. Checked all four. I was like, did he give me the wrong car? So I rang him up, and I was like, look, what did they tell you? And he's like, I was getting a tour done, and they told me I needed brake pads. And they gave me a price, but I wanted to shop around.
Why did he want to shop around?
I don't know.
Did he feel like this didn't feel right?
Maybe he followed his gut and he was like, maybe I'll shop around. And I was like, look, you don't need brake pads. There's no way in the world. I said, I couldn't justify putting brake pads in. It would be like they're brand new. And so, but sometimes that's out there, you know. I had a customer of mine. She was buying her first brand new car, but she had an old Peugeot 206. So the car was to be collected in 2 weeks' time. And anyway, it came into me, and the exhaust had virtually fallen off it, and so it sounded dreadful. So I put it up in the ramp, and I'm looking at it, and where it had broken off, it was just after the catalytic converter, and you couldn't buy that. You could only buy the catalytic converter
as a unit,
as a whole unit, and it was crazy money. It was worth more than the car, and I was like, oh. And I was like, I don't have a welder, you know.
I was going to say, get out the
I was
welder.
like, get the welder. And I said, look. So I rang her up and I told her, look, it's like €800 for this catalytic converter. And she said, and I said, look, I'm going to bring it somewhere and weld it. I said, it'll probably, I don't know how long it's going to last. The exhaust rots from the inside out because of the water coming through from the engine.
Oh, the thickness of the pipe isn't. Would you get enough thickness of a pipe?
They're not that thick, no.
So we're putting
you just see it on some cars, you know, you see the condensation coming out on a cold morning, but then you see a car and it'd be spitting out basically water. And that sits in the exhaust, so it rusts the exhaust. So when one section of it goes, you can be guaranteed it's going to go somewhere else. So you're kind of just
buying time.
Yeah, you're buying a little bit of time. So I brought it down. I won't name the place, but I brought it down and went into the guy and said, look, now I'm in my overalls, you know, but you know, I suppose you could think I was a plumber maybe, or who knows. And I went and said, look, I need to get the section of the exhaust welded. There's a hole in it. And yeah, no problem, I'll get my welder to do it. So he took the car in and he goes up the ramp and I'm sitting down reading the newspaper, kicking the feet up, happy days.
Can't believe I pulled this off.
Yeah, to get him to do this, and I can take 10 minutes out of my day. And then the mechanic comes out and he goes, come here and have a look. So come out and he's like, yeah, there's a hole here that's gone, this whole section is gone, your back box is blown here and it's gone, and blah blah blah. And I'm kind of like, and he was so convincing, and I was like, did I miss something? And I was like, show me. So he shows me and I'm looking at the car and I'm kind of thinking back, I changed the back box on that car 1.5 years ago. You know, there's no way that's gone, but you're still thinking, did I miss something? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, he's trying to convince me that it needs, I was like, well, how much is this, you know, to weld that and this section
new cost.
how much to weld that and this section of exhaust? So it was like 130 quid for the section of exhaust, and he goes, and I'll, you know, 40 quid in the hand and I'll weld a little section for you. And I was like, all right. I said, look, let me make a phone call. So I walked out and I rang my wife just to buy it a bit of time, and I was telling her, I was like, my God. And I was like, kind of thinking, I'd hate to be a customer in that situation, because even I felt the pressure. I was like, did I miss something? And I went back in and I said, no, doesn't want to spend the money. Weld a section of exhaust that's gone, and it's going through the books. I need a receipt. And I walked off. So he welded it, and then getting the keys out, and he goes, I welded that for you. And I welded there's a little hole in the back of on the back box, there's a little hole down the bottom, and I welded that for you. Now that little hole is designed to spit the water out so it doesn't corrode, and he welded that closed.
Right.
So I'm kind of like, I walked out of it and I was like, I'm a mechanic, and I felt, wow, did I miss something? What was going on there? So if you're not into cars, or you don't know, and you went in and you
you're
got
not mechanically minded, yeah.
You think, okay, right, I get that. It's 120 quid, 40 quid, and he's welding for me. Do me a favour, okay? And you'd spend the money, and I didn't need it. And to me, that was kind of a bit of a wake up call to what's out there. Now, it's not there's lots of good mechanics out there.
Anyone that you would recommend, give a show, other than along with yourself, that you've done business alongside, that you've felt have been brilliant?
Yeah, or the place that I done the diagnostic. So when I finished Lufthansa,
yeah. So
I was out of the game for 7 years. So when I went into Lufthansa, there was no, to give you how technology moves, there was no iPhones. iPhones only came out at that point.
Oh, really? Okay.
So you look at where we are technology now with stuff. Cars are the same. They're even more advanced the way they communicate with each other and stuff. Like some of the Mercedes can have 150 laptop equivalent computers all talking to each other, and all making decisions on what's happening. And you know, it's mad. So when I decided, right, I'll go back being a mechanic when Lufthansa had closed and we're all made redundant, I was like, well, I need to get back at doing a few things here in regard. Look, it's turning spanners. That you don't forget that, but the electronics of it had moved on. So this place, MKW Motors, were doing the Bosch Diagnostic Technician Program. So it was 12 modules. Each module was 2 days. So you do 2 days on, it could be electronics, and then another 2 days on diesel injection, another 2 days on airbags, and so forth. So 12 modules. At the end of the 12 modules, you're then assessed on everything you've done. So they'll put live problems into cars and you go find it, and you have 40 minutes to find a problem.
Oh, wow.
Find a problem, tell them what it is, and then what the solution is. You don't have to fix that, you just tell them what it is, but you got to find the problem. So it was a bit of pressure in 40 minutes to be. It could be something as simple as the driver's side wing mirror isn't moving. What's the problem? But for me, it was because when I did my apprenticeship, they never went into the electronics. Specifically, they never, like, on a circuit, there's the live side, which is the positive on your battery, so the positive, and then there's the negative, so the earth side. The earth is as equally as important as the live side. And for all my years up to when I went into the aviation industry, I never tested an earth in my life.
Really?
So a car would come in, for argument's sake, and the driver's side window wouldn't work. Just wasn't, switch, nothing happened. You'd pull off the door panel, you get your test light, and you'd go down to the live side of where the connection went into the motor, and you'd pull the switch and it'd light up. You go, okay, the motor's gone. 9 times out of 10, you were right. The motor was gone. You put a new motor in, you're fine. But if that earth, if that earth was bad on it, it still wouldn't work after you put the motor in. It still gets live. The live would travel down to the motor, but it wouldn't be able to go to ground, go to earth, because the earth could be broken or corroded or damaged. But we would never test that because we're never taught. But when we done this diagnostic thing, they were like, look, it's a full circuit. You got to test the earth and the live. And so it was quite, and plus they're a real garage. They don't just do the training. They do an awful lot of training. They train a lot of the main dealers, and they go out to all the
franchises.
The franchise and stuff, and they do an awful lot of training. They're quite good. So if anything that I have that I can't do for time restraint or what have you, I'll send them to there. So
well, be sure to go into you first, though.
Yeah, make sure you come to me first. But stuff like that, where I know I send somebody there, they're not going to get messed around, and the job is going to be done right. So so MKW Motors, they're in they're just near Baldonald Business Park.
Excellent. And I think massive or big mistakes that you've made in the past that you've come across that bit you in the arse.
No, never. Perfect mechanic, perfect record. Nothing. I was thinking of that, and I was trying. I couldn't think of anything that had caught me out where I'd blown up an engine or destroyed a gearbox or what have you. I've had a few knocks in the workshop when I was an apprentice, crashing a car or something like that. But just the run-of-the-mill stuff, where you do a set of brake pads and you'd forget to pump the brake pedal, so you'd have no brakes.
All right.
So when you do the brake, when you replace the brake pads, you take the caliper has a piston inside it, so it squeezes the brake pads. So it's the brake pads where that piston comes out and out and out and out and out. And then when you put the new brake pads in, you got to squeeze that piston back. So when you squeeze the piston back, you send it all the way back and you close the caliper and put it all back together. And you got to, then that piston has to come out and meet the brake pads. It's only a short distance that has to come, but it's enough for the pedal to drop to the floor when you put your foot on the brake, maybe twice. So what would normally happen is you'd be working on a car, you do the set of brake pads, you do the service, or the customer would have to be asked, and you could be pulled off to a different job. It could be 101 different things going on, and you finish the job, you get into the car and you're pulling it off the ramp, and as you come off, you're not going fast, but in the workshop environment, it's a small space, and you put your foot on the brake and the foot goes to the floor, and then it's panic stations. You're whipping up the handbrake, you're pumping the pedal before you hit something. So stuff like that, has happened once or twice, and you kind of like, you learn from it and go, right, you need to put a process in here so you remember to pump the brake pedal,
Derek, thank you very much for doing this.
No
9D
problem.
Diagnostics, guys, make sure to check them out. I really enjoy your Instagram page. I love the daily updates on the jobs you do, and I love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. Derek, thanks very much for doing this. Guys, thanks very much for listening in. This has been Eamon from Getting Amongst It. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out 9D Diagnostics for further information, and give him a like and a follow. I think what he's really doing here is top-notch stuff, and it's all about your car care. So get on to him, and as always, if you like the podcast, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.